right, guys, we're back with another video. And this video, man, I do not know if you are all ready for this because this is going to blow your minds and it's going to change the way you see martial arts. Now, before I start this video, I want you to pause it and write down below in the comment section what martial art you think is the most dirty, brutal martial art that exists. Hands down, without question. Comment and then come back and we're going to jump right in.
Pow, pow, inside fighting, yeah, dangerous martial arts. Pow, pow, ooh, ah.
All right, so I'm going to start off with a video of someone, and that might give away what martial art this is, but it might not for everyone at least. So let's see, we're going to jump right in.
Throw the stick down, and then I'll be right into this bite. Now, from my bite, if he oopas me, and most big, strong men are gonna oopa you. Frick. Now, if you'll notice, he's just as fucked as he was 2 seconds ago.
Paul Vunak, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Vunak. And the martial art I am talking about is Kinamutai. Now, this is often spelt Kinamutai, and not Muay Thai, like Thai fighting Muay Thai. This is a Filipino martial art. It is a subsect of Filipino martial arts. You can almost learn it in any Filipino martial art you do as part of a system. And so it's a martial art on its own, but it really gets tagged on to a lot of other systems like Pangamot, Filipino Kali, Eskrima, Dumog. And it comes from the word kinamut or kamut, which means to scrape with hands. And if I said that wrong, people, forgive me. If there's a Filipino person watching this who's an expert in Tagalog and I didn't pronounce it properly, then write in the comment section below and correct me. I'm okay with that. But the bottom line is, this is a martial art dedicated to the art of biting, the art of gouging, and the art of essentially the most brutal things you can do, like grabbing the skin on your tricep and pulling, things like that, just wherever you can damage the person. Now, the most unique and important part of this video, and before I jump in, I think it's important to go back to Paul Vunak here. We just got to go back and we got to get Paul Vunak's deep insight into a world of violence.
I'd like to reiterate to you why we bring so much violence to the table. Because it's not in my heart. In my heart is love and compassion. And my heart is to try to give back. When I do tapes and I'm working with a SEAL team and I have to bite and eye gouge all day long, it takes me an hour to shake that off. It takes me an hour to play my music and get back to my norm.
Okay, Paul Vunak is one of those guys. I've talked about this before in my Indonesian martial arts, that I trained with a guy called Randall Goodwin. And Randall was a brutal martial artist. He was the kind of guy that scared you. I've trained a lot of sport martial arts, combat sports. I've trained a lot of traditional martial arts. There's very few people who scare me, who genuinely I'm like, this person will kill me. Randall was one of those guys. He just had like a brutalness to him. And Paul Vunak is one of those guys, and it's interesting, they both come from Southeast Asian martial arts, who has that fear. He instills that fear into me. And I've watched a lot of Paul Vunak videos, and there's only two real people that I know of teaching Kinamutai in an effective way: Salvatore Oliva and Paul Vunak. And they're both going to be part of this video. And they're both definitely top-notch martial artists who are teaching self-defense tactics in a way that I don't see many other people teaching them. And I want to talk about why they're so effective. And one of the main things that makes Paul Vunak's system of Kinamutai so effective, unlike other systems, because I know people are thinking there are systems that bite, there are systems that teach you how to gouge. Krav Maga teaches you how to kick people in the balls every 2 seconds. Well, it's a little bit different here, folks, because there's a mentality here where Paul Vunak came from sport fighting and understood the need for control and the positions of things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how important they are before you actually go for a bite. But he says it a million times better than me. So I'm going to jump right into his video. We're going to watch it and then we're going to talk about it a little bit because it's actually quite brilliant. And I think a lot of people overlook the value of what he says in it.
Does not work against a good grappler. But if you add biting and eye gouging to grappling, it's never biting and eye gouging against grappling. That never was the idea, okay? In fact, when I first started doing jiu-jitsu in the mid-'80s, all the Americans said, oh, I'll bite you, I'll bite you. And I know, oh, you really? You know, even my students were saying, but Sifu, wouldn't you really like to bite? So I come in with a blast, pick them up, body slam them, mount them like a horny sailor, bit slap them, choke them out, and then when they'd wake up, I'd go, where's the bite? So I was the guy that hated the bite.
Okay, so this is important because he was a guy who hated the bite. And he even says it earlier on in the video. He's like, you're karate, you go against a jiu-jitsu guy, you're going to get tapped. You're kung fu guy, you go against a jiu-jitsu guy, you're going to get tapped. He was the guy who was out there saying you're going to get tapped and that the bite is useless. So let's look at why his mentality changed and how interesting it is.
One day I'm driving Hickson to the airport.
That's Hickson Gracie, in case you're wondering. One of the best jiu-jitsu guys in history.
Because he's going to fight. That's when they did that video of the choke. All right, here's his son, and Jim is there. His son put a smoke bomb in the bathroom. A stink bomb that day. So we're driving, and I asked Hickson, I look over, I go, so if you get guys, when you get them on the ground, Hickson, you're going to go pure jiu-jitsu or you're gonna punch? He goes, you only punch when you can punch uninterrupted. Now, this was only 4 years with Hickson, and I didn't understand what that even meant. So Hickson says to me, you only punch when you can punch uninterrupted. I go, oh, whatever. And then we're off to the airport. And then he kicks everybody's ass, of course. I pick him up and I go, what the hell are you talking about, punch interrupted? I've been wondering about that. Wait till we get home. The minute we get back in the door, he slams me, puts me in a triangle choke. And he's slapping my face. This is interrupted. Then he mounts me. This is uninterrupted. Then he gets me in all the uninterrupted positions where you would punch. And I'm like, well, oh, fuck, that makes sense. And then it happened. After 10 years of telling people, F the bite, jiu-jitsu will beat the bite, trust me, I said to myself, what if we look at the bite again through a different lens? What if we look at the bite now through the lens of biting out of all the positions that Hickson would punch uninterrupted?
Biting uninterrupted. And that's actually a kind of system shift that Paul Vunak introduced into systems that have eye gouging, biting, skin grabbing, all that stuff. And he has a really, really interesting gem that he puts in there, and I hope it wasn't missed. And honestly, if you watch my videos and you get one little gem out of this that kind of changes the way you see martial arts or gets you to rethink something, I think that's awesome. And that's the entire point why I'm doing this. And if you do, just let me know in the comment section below. It makes my day when someone's like, hey man, that's really interesting. It actually changed the way I see martial arts. So what I want to say here, which is the big gem for me, and something that actually changed the way I fight and the way I see fighting when I started looking at more of Paul Vunak's stuff, especially coming from a Filipino martial arts background, was when he said it was never supposed to be biting versus grappling. It's supposed to be biting with your grappling. It's supposed to be eye gouging with your clinch fighting from Muay Thai. It's supposed to take everything you're doing in these sports systems, because I was that guy. I was the guy making fun of people who believe they could eye gouge me and bite me when I'm doing jujitsu on them and I'm putting you in an armbar or I'm triangle choking you. And in fact, I was at seminars that other people were doing, and I have a very awkward story. I'm not going to give away the person's name, but this person did Sistema. They said, is anyone able to come choke me out? Come try and choke me out. And so he goes, does anyone have a grappling background? I said, I have a grappling background. He's like, you want to come try and choke me up? I'm like, I really don't, but there's a lot of people. I'm not actually going to go for it, even if I can get it. And so he says, come on up and try and choke me out. I'm like, all right, I'll do this. So I go up and he goes, what position do you want me in? I put him in a rear naked choke with my choke in, with my hooks in. There's no way he's getting out. It's impossible. Okay, I'm a trained grappler. And he right away goes, oh man, you really know what you're doing. I'm like, yes, that's the point. You asked for a grappler to come up. Anyway, he's not getting out, and I feel like I can put him to sleep. So I let him out because I figure it's done. And this guy in the seminar, to save face, turns around, goes into my guard now, and starts acting like he's going to eye gouge me. And he puts his hands on my face. And so that pissed me off. And what I did right away is I shot up into a triangle choke. I still didn't want to tap. So I put him in an armbar. I cranked it and he screamed. It was very embarrassing for him. And I let it go. But it was obvious to everyone watching that his eye gouge didn't work. In other words, it doesn't work if you don't have the other skill sets to make it work. And from that point on, I kind of would make fun of people who would do these systems of grappling and biting and all that stuff until I was in Vancouver training in a class where they allowed fish hook, they allowed gouging, but they were also all jiu-jitsu guys. And it was a class I could not keep going to. It was just too rough for me. I couldn't handle it. And a lot of people can't handle it. That's why I think you have to figure out a proper way to train this and at least be aware of it. But I couldn't handle getting eye gouged and all this stuff and getting my face fish hooked. And they weren't gouging hard, just enough that you would feel it and it would get you to react. But the fundamental point is they had an understanding of position. And so you need to understand position before all these supplemental techniques that we all learn in traditional martial arts, which we all go around prancing around saying, oh, I could just eye gouge you. I could just do this. You can't. You can't unless you have the other aspects of fighting there. But then when you do, this will take your street self-defense and survival techniques, the biting, the gouging, the ripping, all that dirty, dirty stuff that Kinamutai teaches you will take your martial arts to the next level. And so there's a really great video I'm about to play where Paul Vunak is looking at a defense to a rear naked choke, and it ties me in to what just happened to me because his defense would have worked. And it is brutal, and he wouldn't have had to do it hard. And it shows you how an understanding of positional escapes and where the chokes are coming from because you had done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because you had done the sport martial arts. You've gone and you sparred with Muay Thai guys. You've sparred with boxers. You understand how to get them. The concept of uninterrupted biting demonstrated perfectly. And I have a couple videos here that are going to show it, but let's jump right in because this is one of the most unique examples of it.
If he gets the first arm in already, go for it. You need to reach back and grab that second arm here. That second arm, you can't. Now squeeze and make me tap. Good. Because nobody can make you tap with one hand, most people. So once you've got the situation, then you pin this. Now I bite. As I nibble, he's going to pull away and just start punching my head. Pull away. And just start punching. Bang. And that's going to be not what I want. So, again, what is a bite? If it's not uninterrupted, it's just a bite. Uninterrupted bite is Kinamutai. So when that first hand is in, and I tried to defend it, I couldn't, and I'm here. Now, I raise this up. Now pull that arm away. He can't. Now I bite. And now, finally, when he pulls away, he has very little meat left, and I've defended the rear naked choke my way.
Okay, that's awesome. And I want to say that it's awesome because like the instinct wouldn't be to grab and control. That's something that you have to learn. That is actually, if you look at like turtle defense, what you do is you reach over, and turtle defense is a position in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu where you're on all four. People reach and they try and control you. What you're going to do is you're going to compress their arm down so you can sweep them. You start learning these kind of body controls so that you can get into better positions. He clearly has that. And he goes, I don't want them to get away from me. So I'm going to grip. I'm going to get full control of them. And that's where I'm going to bite from. And he does that in every position. He'll clinch people. If someone's attacking him, he drives in kind of similar to how I show. And then he takes them, they're face to face. He'll put them in a front rear naked choke and just bite. And Salvatore Oliva does very similar stuff. I mean, I want to show some of his stuff here. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, so this video is absolutely insane. He literally takes raw meat and attaches it to his training partner. Now, his training partner has it on his neck, his ribs, all different parts of his body. And he's showing that if I don't control him, the guy's just going to pull away. See that? So what he's going to demonstrate next is how to control people from different positions so that they can't get away. So you want to hug the person. It's completely counter to my mentality of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is on the bottom, I want to create space. Here you want to take away space, even though you're in the vulnerable position. And he's showing it right now that he's going to grip, biting the neck. This is insane. My instinct here, if I'm a fighter, and I would think in my head, I'm in a full dominant position. I'm on top side control. Even if it was a street fight, I wouldn't even think of this. And that's the problem. If you're not aware of it, you won't do it. And worst of all, it can happen to you. And so here, he's not letting the guy get away. Now, if I'm in top control, I'm not thinking of getting away. I'm thinking of taking away space. That's how I've been trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 25 years. And in reality, what I'm doing is I'm opening up my neck to be bitten. And my instinct would be exactly the same as this guy, which is to pull away, and you can't. He just switched to a new control position as the guy was pulling away. I don't know if you noticed that. He's now under the arm, and he's gripping, and he's biting under the armpit. And now he's going to switch again to north-south and bite the guy's stomach. And this is insane. But your instinct would be to just pull away. And then he's going to stand up slow motion and stare at the camera. And, you know, if someone pulled that off on me, I'd have to let them do that too. There's nothing you can say about it. And I want you to see just how bad the meat is. How much damage was done to this meat that is now falling off of his body. It's going to demonstrate it. So, guys, I don't necessarily recommend doing this unless you're an absolute savage maniac. But look at this meat. Imagine that was your ribs. Humans have strong bites. That's what I've discovered in this video. Humans can definitely bite you way harder than you think. And that would be very messy and bloody and would definitely cause panic. So the notion, and this is something I've adopted from a long time ago. I want to get into another kind of principle, which I think is very, very valuable in fighting. the principle of being reactive and active. In a street self-defense situation, by nature of how a fight works, the aggressor is active, the victim or the person defending is reactive. Why? Because they're taking action. It's why people always say the person who throws the punch first usually wins the fight. The sucker punch is so dangerous because it's an active movement. You're not reacting to something. You are the one creating action. And so you throw this wild, simple haymaker. The other person's in a state of panic, reactive, high stress response, adrenal stress response, and now they have to defend what is coming to them. So I always teach people in self-defense, go from being reactive to active, because then that means the aggressor is now becoming reactive. How do we do that? We do that by getting to positions of control, not by backing up, but by closing in, hugging our head, controlling the person. And now from here, I teach using elbows, headbutts, all that stuff, but I never really include the bite that much. It is an incredibly effective tool if you're willing to do it. If it's a high stress situation where it's potentially life or death, you use every tactic you have available. From positions of control, you are going to take this kind of scale of who is active and reactive, who's in control and who's in a state of fear and panic, and you're going to shift that on its head. You're going to close in, you're going to grab the person, they can't get away. All of a sudden, you're gripping their neck, you're biting their nose. Another thing about Kinamutai doesn't only teach you how to bite and how to control for the bite. It is teaching you where to bite. The nose, the ear. It doesn't take much pressure to get a grip on someone's ear and rip it off. It's very little pressure. The carotid artery, the nipple. They talk about biting the nipple. So you learn anatomy as you're learning the system. And I know people will think this is absurd, but the notion that there's a martial art entirely dedicated to the art of how to bite people, where to bite people, and how to control them for biting and bring it in as a subset for your other systems is absolutely brilliant to me. I also want to talk a little bit more about Paul Vunak and something very interesting about Paul Vunak's style of fighting. Because if you look at Paul Vunak here, something I love about Paul Vunak is that he uses every part of his body effectively, but he does something that I always say implies to me right away I could tell someone's a good fighter, which is even when he's talking, even when Paul Vunak is just there having a conversation, what is Paul Vunak doing? Paul Vunak, anytime he's having a conversation or demonstrating, he's hiked. His shoulders are hiked up like this because he's used to real fighting. Real fighting makes you protect the vital parts of your body, your carotid artery, your jaw. Okay, so when I hike, his natural instinct, if you look all these times, look at him use his head so effectively. Even before he kicks, his shoulders come up. That to me is a sign that someone has experience because it's an instinctive response that is very defensive and it allows you to close the distance to start pulling off all these techniques. And by the way, if you haven't liked and subscribed to this channel and you don't after this video, then I never want to see you again or to hear from you. Don't even comment. And by that, I mean, please keep watching. It still helps, but I appreciate it if you like and subscribe and share the video. It helps me grow the channel.